Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
Welcome to the Rock Interview. We're so thrilled to bring you an incredible singer, songwriter, and a visionary in his instrumentation and everything else he does, besides being a great producer. It is Todd Rundgren. Thanks for coming on the Rock Interview, Todd.
Great to be here.
You know, I think it's so
great to be anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and speaking of visionary, Todd, you know, knowing your career and your music throughout the years, and you've accomplished so many great things, but you've got this new tour that you actually had the concept for a few years ago that's clearly human. And I want you to talk about this for our viewers, though.
I've been touring quite a bit the past few years. I guess most artists, when the record industry kind of changed and record sales weren't the income stream that it used to be, we all started doing a lot more touring. Mm-hmm. And I started change because I'm getting a little older and I need to get my proper rest and stuff. I started changing the way that I toured a couple of years ago. And part of that change involved like not taking buses anymore. It was flying. Right? Yeah. Essentially, I'd play two nights in a major market and then take 2 days off. And that gave the crew plenty of time to get the equipment where it's supposed to go. And we stopped taking buses. I was flying. But then I was also finding myself ever more often sitting in the airport waiting for a delayed flight and wondering if I'm going to make it to the gig. And most of that was because of the changes in the climate and the fact that there are more storms in the Atlantic. So any time a major weather event happens, airports would get closed down and that ricochets to the entire system. Planes don't take off, so they don't get to your airport, so it can take you to the next place. Right. So I started thinking that this climate thing isn't going to get better. It's going to be, it's going to continue to impact things. So I thought, how do I compensate for that? What happens if, like we have a really bitter winter, like we're about to have, you know, it's coming. And you can't travel, you know, because everything's snowed in and that sort of thing. So I thought, what if you set everything up in a venue somewhere, but instead of taking it down, you narrowcast it to all of the venues that you would have gone to at the nights that you would have been there. In other words, 25 shows for 25 cities, not just one show for everybody. So that was the original idea. And that was possible because most venues have video now in them. Right. So it would have been, from an audience standpoint, pretty much the same experience, but for the fact that I wouldn't physically be there, but I would be putting on a show just for them. And then, of course, we had the pandemic, and now the audience can't get to the gig. So we have to deliver it to their home. So the biggest challenge in all this is trying to maintain as much of the experience as that people have become used to in terms of going out to see a show. So we do 25 shows, one for each city that we would have gone physically to. We do them all at 8 o'clock local time, like you would expect. Mm-hmm. So that you can, you know, plan your day around it like you usually do. You know, if you're going to a concert, you hire a babysitter. Of course, you won't have to hire the babysitter this time. But essentially 25 cities, 25 shows starting on February 14th. We're all gathering here in Chicago. Got here yesterday morning. Some people are getting in today and there's snow all over the place. So we all get our COVID tests tonight, and then hopefully the equipment will get here in the next day or two and we'll start rehearsing.
I just think it's such an incredible concept, and you're so well known for this, Todd, with things that you come up with. But to be able to envision this with the 25 cities, that it's going to be, you know, originating from Chicago, but then it's going to be geo-fenced for the market that it goes to. And so let's say Nashville, you're looking at your tour, and you target it there, and then it's at 8 o'clock in our time and for the cities you're doing that. But I think what's incredible too, to where you took it a step further, is that you're also doing virtual meet and greets, and you can choose your camera angle, much like you do with a sporting event, to where it's like, well, I really want to see, off to the side. I want to see what the drummer's doing. I mean, you got a 10-piece band, and you can choose your camera within this virtual world that you're creating.
Yeah, well, you want to give people, you want to try and make up for the parts of the experience that get lost because, we can't actually be in physically the same place.
Right.
So you want to, give them an opportunity to do something that they wouldn't be able to do live, which would be to get a close up on the drummer or somebody else or the background singers. And on top of that, it's about the performers as much as it is about the audiences. Us feeling like we're doing something for this particular place. So we will be, every night we have a show, we essentially localize the entire venue. We run a little slideshow beforehand that's all landmarks and stuff from the particular town. And we put up like posters and memorabilia from the town, sports memorabilia and stuff, local newspapers. And we're attempting, and we're doing pretty good so far, but we're attempting to get food from a local eatery, like someplace that everybody from that town would recognize,
Right.
like the Anchor Bar in Buffalo. Yeah, it's our first gig. We're going to get buffalo wings for catering and stuff like that. So we're self-hypnotizing as well. We're going to be in Buffalo in our heads.
Right.
Or in Nashville or in Indianapolis or San Diego.
I mean, I just think that's so incredible. And also this coincides with the re-release of your 1989 album, Nearly Human, which was obviously available on digital, CD, and vinyl, that Warner Brothers Music is putting out also, right?
This was a great opportunity to revisit that music, and it makes an especially good show as well. I think it's music for our times in a way, because it was a pretty uplifting period for me in terms of making music and the stuff that we do. It's almost like going to church, and because we have a big band, we have more interactions to watch. People are interacting with each other, and that's always a little bit more fun. So we've gone to some trouble to pick a show that will survive this kind of thing, that there's enough interesting to look at that over the course of 2 hours, you won't get bored. That has got a lot of people's favorite music in it as well. And so when we decided that that's what we would do, I think that's when Warner Brothers figured that would be a great way to cross promote. We'll put the album out, re-release the album, and the show and the album will promote each other.
Well, you've got such a huge body of great work and great songs over the years too, Todd. It's got to be tough to go through and decide what you're going to play. But I was wondering, and it's just so great that you're doing the food and everything with these concerts to really, convince the band and everybody else, when they get their ticket and come to the show. Are you guys going to be offering different T-shirts per city for the tour also? I mean, because, a lot of times, it's like, it's a big tour. I'm going to see Todd Rundgren. I'm going to need a T-shirt.
Yeah, there's the app that it actually runs in a browser, but essentially the site that you go to watch the show also has merchandising, merchandise for sale there. There's also live chat, so you can talk to people who would be in your area. The geofencing is a new thing for doing this kind of broadcasting thing. It's And so what the geofencing does is direct you to the geographically nearest gig that you would have been able to go to. So,
interesting.
So if you are in Camden, well, we're not playing Philadelphia, but if you were in Camden, we'd probably direct you to New York City because we do have a New York City gig.
Yeah.
But if you were in like Alaska, in Anchorage or something like that, it would probably direct you to Seattle. You get the Seattle gig. And the only the exception to that is if you don't live within the United States. If you have an IP address outside the United States, you can buy a ticket to any show. But of course, the show won't appear at 8 o'clock your time. It'll appear whenever it appears. So.
And this is, you started working with NoCap also for the live streaming on this. And so they're really working hand in hand with you to give, like you were talking about the infrastructure to pull off something of this magnitude. Because I think back to back in 2016, when you did the 360-degree view and, some of the other things you've done. I mean, you're kind of the king of first when it comes to doing things with shows. Like I remember back in the day, even with the New Tech Video Toaster, and we were using those in the TV stations. And you were like one of the guys that was already doing videos and creating elements on New Tech, and even the Apple tablet. You tend to do things to where you're the first, Todd.
It has a lot to do with my upbringing, because my dad was an engineer. He worked at a factory, a DuPont factory in Philadelphia. And he also knew about electronics and stuff. He would build his own hi-fi, and we would build radio kits from Radio Shack and that sort of thing. Big tool bench and a big carpentry lathe and stuff down in the garage. So I was always comfortable with the technology, and I got interested in computers very early on when I was like maybe 8. Eventually computers made advances, and every time there was a personal computer that got released, I got it. I got one. And then it was finally when I got my first Apple II Plus, that's when I started working on graphic software and became like a real computer programmer. And Apple put out the first program I ever wrote.
Really?
Unfortunately, it was for a piece of hardware that never got out of the testing phase.
Well, I want to bring up too, Todd, so many of us know you as an incredible cutting edge artist and always evolving with your music and everything. But also, you've produced a lot of great bands over the year. I mean, including The Band, Badfinger, Grand Funk Railroad, Hall & Oates.
That's re-release of Stage Fright coming out now as well.
Really?
A box set, apparently, because I just did... yesterday, I interviewed for that as well. So Stage Fright's coming out. Yeah, The Band, Hall & Oates, Cheap Trick, Patti Smith, Grand Funk Railroad.
Yeah, just a huge body of work. I got to tell you too, Todd, I was watching the floppy video and listening to the song again, and I was wondering now if the holidays are done, if there's going to be a support group possibly put together for the listeners and viewers of floppy. And just, and possibly something about the shed. I'm concerned about the shed that's in the song. And I wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, the label that I'm working with, Cleopatra, I got to plug Space Force, my next project, which is coming out. We'll have a single, next single coming out from Space Force. Me and Sparks collaboration on a song called Fandango. So I wanted to get that in. That should be out any day now because there's a Sparks movie coming out, Sparks documentary that was just at the Sundance Festival. So Floppy, my label asked me to do a Christmas single. And I'm about the least Christmassy guy in the world. My least favorite holiday. And so I was looking around for something different, for something novel. And I discovered this song that was originally released by a Dutch artist. And the original version is all in Dutch. And it's never been translated into English. But it's essentially part of the Dutch musical canon. They play the song every Christmas. It's a tradition with them. But it also reflects their very dark sense of humor, which they're very proud of.
But what fun to have something out there like that also that it had never been translated from Dutch before. I didn't know that. Well, and also I want to make sure for our viewers, Todd, they know where can they go to get tickets for the tour if they are in the geo-fenced area or international.
You go to nocap.com, N-O-C-A-P, and they've got, all of the shows that they're doing. I'm not the only show, but they got all the shows they're doing. So pretty easy to find my show within that. as you say, you have a number of options. You can get into the meet and greet thing. We're going to do that ideally as close to expectations as we can. What we're going to do instead is we're going to set up a room. We're going to have 3 screens in the room with Zoom calls on the screens.
Yeah.
And then when it's your turn to get your picture taken or whatever, obviously I can't sign anything, but when it's your turn to interact with me and get your picture taken, then you get Zoom focus, take the picture, and everyone can watch, while we do that. Everyone will be kind of in the same room watching. And hopefully we'll get that done in half an hour, and then do all the other things that we do, which is have dinner and put on a show.
It's just an incredible concept, Todd, that you're doing with this, with Clearly Human, and also, with the tour, the virtual tour that you're doing, and also the re-release of your 1989 hit album, Nearly Human. But you got so many great things going on, and I just always like keeping up with you, Todd, because you constantly push the envelope. So, Todd Rundgren, thank you so much for joining the Rock and Review, and have a great tour.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in Nashville, virtually.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.